All right. It's good to see everybody. It occurred to me when Carrie, oh, there she is. When Carrie and I spoke earlier this week that it had been some time since we had met as a full committee. So it's good to see you all. And we've got 2 new members since we last got together as well. So I thought back when I was new to the committee, it was always nice to just spend a couple of quick minutes and have the existing committee members just say hello and introduce themselves briefly so that Kathleen and Laura can get to know us all as best as possible via Zoom. So Tara, I know you just took a bite, so I won't start things off with you. But Pat, you're the next square on my screen, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Pat Nelson. I've been on the committee, I think this is my 3rd year. Prior committee participation in town has been on the finance committee, and I'm the executive director of Concord Children's Center. So I have a particular interest in the library and its accessibility to families and young children. And I just love the library.
Great. And Kristen, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Sure. My name's Kristen. I just wrapped up my 1st year on the committee. I have a work background as a social worker and also as a teacher. And this is my first experience on a committee for the town.
Great. And Tara.
I'm Tara Edelman. I can't remember how long I've been on the committee. I'm sorry. I should know that. But it's been a few years. And I love the library. I love what the library is doing now during COVID. The way it's really out in the community. I think that's great. And I love seeing the tables filled outside. I am a social worker and a business person. Yeah, got a bunch of kids. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
And I'm Lindsay Howard. I don't know, Tara, how long I've been on the committee either, but it's slightly less time than you have been on the committee. I do know that. And I am the new chair. This is my first experience on a town committee, my first experience chairing anything like this. So I will be relying on you all and Tara as our most recent chair, especially early on in our meeting. So appreciate any feedback you all have to make this a good experience for everyone on the committee. And we've got our usual group of observers in attendance as well, including Sherry, Brian, and Terry. So it's great to see you all. And I think we're good. Laura and Kathleen, I know you both introduced yourself to us back a couple of months ago, but if you want to just give us a quick reminder of who you both are, that would be great. It's been some time since we've seen you both.
Sure, I can jump in. It's Laura. So I have a business background. I run a division of a company called Business Talent Group, and we work with on-demand talent, place them on projects. I'm a former Bain consultant and spent many years in industry, but one of my favorite places in the world is the library. And it's usually my first stop in most towns, I guess, I go into in any country also. And I especially, one of the reasons we moved to Concord was because I was so in love with, especially the branch on Main Street. So I spent many years, and I also think everyone's doing a fantastic job with COVID. It's really become a central hub and a central place where people go.
And I'm Kathleen Reedy. Thanks so much for having me on the committee. So I have a background in library science actually, but had actually worked more in kind of corporate libraries and market research. Lived in town for 10 years. I have 2 girls at the high school. This is my first time being on a town committee, though certainly involved with the elementary school PTG and the local chapter of the National Charity League and the Scholarship Fund. And second or third, whatever that would be, about what's been going on at the library during COVID. And of course, avid library user, as I'm sure that everyone here is. And I think that's it. Excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Great. All right, so with that, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which I'm sure is very exciting to all of you. We figure out a schedule of minute takers. And most importantly, we need a volunteer for tonight. So if anybody would be willing to do that, that would be great. Don't all volunteer at once.
I'll do it. It's fine.
Thanks, Kristen.
Mhm.
So I attempted, I don't know if this is going to work, but in the chat, I put a link to a Google Doc that is very basic and just lists the schedule of our meetings through
Oh, I have to, you
through July.
request edit access.
Yeah, I didn't know if this was going to work or not. I was trying to think of a quick way to do this since we can't just pass a sign-up sheet around the table as we've done in the past.
If you want to quickly give me like admin permission, then
Yeah,
I can
let's
go in and
see.
give everybody else edit permission, if that would help.
I'm gonna share this with you and you have full editor access now. At least you should.
Oh, it does.
Right.
Oh, can't type.
And for November 17th and April 20th.
Great. And we can be sure to, we'll leave a couple of slots open for Sue. But if there's anybody else who
Happy
has
to,
a
Happy to
preference.
take January.
yeah, whenever.
Okay.
Is that Kathleen?
Sure, yeah, you can put me down for any 2 dates, I'm sure are fine. Or
Sorry,
however many.
I can't see faces because I'm looking at the.
Yes, this is
document.
Kathleen, yep. Yeah, that date's fine, and you can just pick another one.
And it's Laura, you can put me down for 2 dates as well.
Is it KLEI?
KLEIN. Yep, you got it.
All right, that's done.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And I will turn it over now to Sherry, who's got an update on the library project, which should be pretty exciting this month, I would imagine.
Yes, definitely. I'm delighted to be here this evening. Yes, so last week we actually had the official groundbreaking. We had discussed how to do that because of the pandemic, and we decided that it was important to do something. I mean, we've all worked so long and so hard to get it to this point that we just didn't feel it was right just to kind of, you know, gradually, you just ignore doing it all together. So we do have protocols for outdoor use of the library, and we followed them, and we had to keep it small. We would have loved to, you know, invite full library committee, friends of the library, many staff members and so on, but we had to keep the numbers low. So we had representatives, and we were delighted that Lindsay, you were there to represent the library committee. We had Ayana Curry to represent the Friends of the Library. The town manager was there, which was wonderful. Our architect, of course, Carrie is the library director, and several of the trustees. I'm trying to think, Carrie, you might remember some additional people, but we, you know, again, we wanted to be as inclusive as we could, but still be safe. So I think it worked, and there was a lot of excitement, and we took the photographs. Although I will share with you, there was one funny photograph that fortunately Marcy didn't use, and that was. You know how you have the spades and you dig in all at the same time. Well, I guess I got really enthusiastic and there's a picture of me, like everyone else is kind of just bending over slightly with their spades in. And I'm like fully bent over, like digging this, like a big mound of dirt. And it looks like I'm going to do the whole project myself. So when I saw that, I said to Marcy, I'm not sure if that's the official publicity shot that we should use. And fortunately she had another one. So anyway, but just trying to share some of
Very
the, like,
appropriate, Sherry, for all the heavy lifting you've done through raising the money for this project.
I like that, Pat.
Yeah, I think you should use that photo.
Maybe we will. Maybe we will. So that took place, and I'll just give you a little bit more information. I think, Pat, you asked at the beginning of the meeting how long the project is, and it's a 15-month project, which would take us tentatively to the end of 2021, December 2021. As you know, I mean, we've had a good track record for keeping our projects on time and on budget. With the last big one was the Fowler expansion. But things can happen, obviously. So that's our target date. The really good news, and I think I've shared this before, is the library will never have to completely close. It's been thought out so that first we'll be working on the 151 section and doing a lot of that work before we do the work in the older building. And so that's going to take, I know, a lot of coordination with the staff. Carrie's been working closely with us on that, and the staff's been wonderful, to help us figure that out, or to understand how to work around some of the inconveniences. But it's still great that we don't actually have to close, because sometimes, when we did the last main library renovation, the library closed, I think, at least for a couple of months. And so that we don't want, especially after the pandemic, we don't want the library to have to be closed any more than it needs to be, for sure. Let's see, we will be putting up some banners because, of course, people can see that something's going on. There's the fence there, but we'll be putting up some nice banners. Marcy just commissioned them to be made that will show a picture, rendering of the project and give a little bit of information about its features. So I think that will be nice. Of course, we'll display the Community Preservation Act sign, which we're required to do, but of course we're proud to do. So that will be going up as well. Also, we think it's really important to keep the community updated on our progress, and so there will be weekly updates on the library website and also on the Library Corporation website. And I believe we're going to have one of those cameras that will constantly be recording the construction work. And so, we might actually just post, I don't know if we'll post all the video footage or some of the video footage, but just so people can actually see the project happening. I think that could even be neat for kids, to understand a little bit more about the construction. And speaking of kids, I know that the librarians have also been thinking about putting together displays of children's books on building and construction. Obviously, there's Mike Mulligan and the Steam Shovel, but there are many wonderful children's books that could be featured. So I think they're thinking about doing some fun things along that line as well. So I think that's it. Are there any questions? Okay.
Carrie, did you have a?
Sorry, I do have a question. What is the current status of the discussions about the parking situation?
Oh, thank you, Kristen. I actually did mean to mention that, so I'm glad you asked. So the latest was that we had gone back to the HDC with an accessible, well, actually with an accessible parking plan, as well as a couple of other things that were related to windows and that type of thing. And I think I reported maybe last time that we asked if we could actually separate those things because HEC was ready to approve the window thing, you know, those types of things. And we thought, well, let's just get that done because we actually could start construction, you know, once that happened. So they agreed. So that was good. But we said that we would come back with a new application just focusing on the accessible parking. So we began that process I think it was last week. And there was a lot of good discussion. There were several members of the Commission on Disabilities there who spoke during the public comments. We're not done yet. We are going to go back and with some variations of some of the things we discussed and talked about. And by the way, even though we went with one plan because that's what they want you to do, we were able to share with them. We had 2 well-attended public meetings where we got lots of feedback, and the result of that was really 7 plans, some on site, some on street. I hesitate to say on street because it's really kind of off the street, but not on site. And so we showed the commission the 7 just so that they would understand the process. And by the way, there were at least 3 of the commissioners that attended the public meetings. So that was good. So they got to, you know, sort of hear what people had to say, what people's concerns were. But we did, as a board, we decided which one, you know, we wanted to present. And so there was a lot of discussion about that. And we will be going back on November. Well, I'm pretty sure we will be going back on November 5th. We're still trying to decide if we're going to be doing that or not, and what our next step is based on what we heard. So that's kind of where we stand right now.
Okay, so the next step is HDC looking at whichever plan you put forth on November 5th. Do I understand right?
So not quite. So they looked at the one that we put forth last week. And did not seem so inclined to maybe choose that one, but they had seen some of the other possibilities. So there was a lot of discussion about those other possibilities. And there seemed to be one in particular that most commissioners liked. So it's likely that we'll go back with that one. But we were also asked by the chair to look at an alternative for another one. So we're doing that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we are.
I was at the second meeting, so I know all 7 plans, and I remember they sort of broke into 3 categories. So I'm curious, the one that the commissioners liked, there were cutouts on the street, there were parking lots that involved backing up, and there was a U-shaped driveway. Which of those 3 basic subsets is sort of in favor right now?
Well, okay, so we're still kind of in the middle of deciding that, but based on the meeting that you attended, if you went to the meeting last week, you probably heard that most of the commissioners liked the one that's been approved that we call option 1. And by the way, all of these meet the codes, you know, so that's there was somebody kind of questioned that, but no, believe me, we've checked that with the engineers and with the ADA. I mean, they all are going to meet the codes. So the one that's been approved is, you know, as sort of that cutout, you know, on the street, 2 spaces. But option 2, we seem to have a lot of favor, which was having a buffer zone, like so they're like not on site, but on, let's say on the street, indented, but I believe it is an 8-foot additional buffer zone. So that gives, you know, that makes it even further away from actually getting out into any traffic and that type of thing. So we heard a lot of positive comments about that particular plan.
Okay.
But the chair also did want us to explore at least one of the on-site options again. So we're doing that as well.
Okay. I'm pro tree, so I was wondering if the U-shaped driveway had any traction because I didn't want the tree to come down.
No, no, that didn't. It wasn't
Great.
discussed at all. And we feel strongly about that tree not coming down. And because there are other options where that doesn't need to happen. So that's not under consideration. I can tell you that.
Thank you.
And I will say, let me, one last thing is that what became clear from the commissioner's comments is that most of them felt there needed to be a balance, that yes, accessibility of course is important. It's one of the library's core values. And in fact, I will say the commissioners in general were quite positive about the library. The tone was a lot different than it had been in some earlier meetings, just in terms of, number one, appreciating all the effort that we're putting into considering all these options and the public meetings and so on. Just the library in general and the accessibility of the library in many ways, and of the project. So it was nice that we heard those positive comments. So we, we'll just have to see where it ends up. But but I wanted to say they did express that they felt that it's important to have a balance between the aesthetics, the open space, which they said is more important than ever, and we've learned that, and of course the accessibility. So I think that's what we're trying to do is find a solution that does sort of balance all of those things.
Thank you.
Tara, and then I think Carrie might have had a question too.
Oh, Carrie, sorry. So Sherry, I just thought it might be worth mentioning, since this is a public forum, what the corporation might be doing to support neighbors who might be impacted by this. So how you are communicating with neighbors and what resources are available if they have questions or concerns.
Yes. So we've reached out to the neighbors, and as I mentioned, we're doing these weekly reports that will be on and have already started to be on our website. But in addition to that, we're sending that information to the neighbors. So they're getting information directly, getting updates. And we've also agreed, if we know, when there's something going to particularly eventful happening, that they know. I'm sure that they would like to know, like they've even asked sometimes, like, well, when do you think it might be particularly noisy or things like that. But that's kind of hard because, you're in the middle of a construction project, and so things are going to be happening all the time. But we are sensitive to the fact that it is going to affect them more than most. And so I think the communication has been good, and we're committed to it. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Carrie, did you have a question or comment earlier? I don't know if I thought I saw your hand, but.
My question was actually the same as Kristen's, so I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, good. And there is a building committee that includes, there's a subcommittee, we meet weekly, which is really more the architects and the contractors meeting to discuss we have our project manager meeting to discuss details. But then there's a monthly meeting, or I should say a building committee that's going to meet monthly, that includes some citizens. I'm sorry I didn't bring the list with me, but next time I will, so you can see who's on. I believe it's on the website too, and if it isn't, it will be. But it's a good combination of people with expertise, but in building specifically, or other building projects in town, like say the high school and so on. So it'll be good to have them as advisors and watching things along the way.
Great. All right. Thank you, Sherry.
My pleasure.
Right, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the August 18th meeting, and then we met again as a committee on August 31st to discuss new members. And as Carrie had emailed earlier, I'm hoping somebody might have taken minutes at that meeting, but I don't recall that anybody did. And I'm guessing nobody did. I don't know if you got a response to your email, Carrie.
Did not, no.
Okay. All right, well, I can connect with you later and we'll figure out how to handle the August 31st meeting minutes, but
It's recorded, right? Where are the recordings?
yeah, I think we could probably recreate the minutes relatively easily based on the recording. I don't remember.
There is an auto transcribe thing in Zoom too, so they might already, I mean, you have
That's good to
to,
know.
you have to clean it up, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember it being a particularly long meeting either. So if that auto transcribe feature works, it could be a nice time saver.
Okay. I submitted minutes for a September meeting. Did those also go where they needed to go?
That was that was for the subcommittee, correct? Yeah. So I've got those. And then but yeah, got to take a look at the August 18th minutes. I don't know if anybody's had a chance ahead of time to look at them, but we can certainly take a moment and go through them real quick.
So I didn't see them in the email, and I don't know if I'm just being spacey. So there are a bunch of attachments.
Let me see.
Sounded like there
here.
were missing minutes from August from both.
Is that correct, Kara? Is my misunderstanding? Are they from both, or do we have the August 18th
I
minutes?
I don't believe I received either. So,
Okay.
Did anyone here take minutes for the 18th?
Pretty sure I didn't. Let me just double check.
My memory, and Tara, you may feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Now that I'm thinking back to the 18th, was that it was Sue that took minutes?
Oh,
I could be misremembering, but I'm fairly certain I recall her volunteering to take them at that meeting, but I don't know for sure.
I can't remember. I'm sorry.
That's
I'll
okay.
follow up with her.
We
after
can figure it out. It'll be an August minute mystery.
August feels like years ago.
It really does. It's hard to remember. It was 2 months ago. It feels much longer than 2 months ago. I'm like scrolling through my email, and the amount of things that happened between that August meeting and today, it's hard to keep track of it all. So I guess we can move on from that item on the agenda and just close the loop regarding the administrative code. So a group of us met in September, I believe, to talk about updating the administrative code. I am fairly confident that I got all of the suggestions that the folks on the subcommittee had for updating that document. And there should be a draft of that document in the email that Carrie sent. So before we send it off, I just wanted to make sure that not only that I got all of your suggestions accurately in the document, but that anybody who wanted to just take a quick minute and look through it one last time while we were together had that opportunity to do so.
I think it may be worth mentioning for those who are not there that the changes we made were minimal.
yeah.
They were very minimal changes. That's for sure. I think that there were maybe two fairly, I guess, more substantive edits. The first being kind of the first sentence right off the bat, saying the committee is comprised of a minimum of 7 members, allowing for the opportunity for the size of the committee to grow in the near future. And then I believe the other substantive changes were in section C on the second page. There's, I think, the third paragraph says a standing invitation shall be issued for a representative of the library corporation to provide an update to communicate with the library committee as a standing part of the committee agenda. Just some small changes that highlight some of the things that we had been talking about back in August, to update the document to better reflect what we all kind of see our role on the committee as. So please let me know if there's any objections or further edits to anything that we've got in there.
And I think it's worth noting that the reason we're increasing the size, we're allowing the opportunity to increase the size of the committee is so that we can take advantage of opportunities to increase the diversity of representation on the committee, which is reflected later in that paragraph.
That's right. Thank you. And this is where my inexperience will really come through. Do we need to make a motion to approve this document as a committee before sending it off, or how do we properly kind of wrap this process up?
So I'm thinking that we need to vote, and Terry's here so she can override me. But I'm thinking that we need to basically make a motion to submit these updated updated administrative code to the select board for consideration and approval. Is that true, Terry?
Yes, I think that would be the way to go.
All right, so I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve these this updated library administrative code and submit it to the select board for consideration and approval.
I second that motion.
All in favor? I think you say that, but
Oh, yeah. That's all right.
Sorry, I moved
No.
too quickly.
It's okay. I don't mind.
You have to do a roll call vote if it's by Zoom.
All right. So identifying ourselves and voting,
Right,
for or
so
against.
Right, the chair or the clerk can just call each member and then.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Kathleen, you're first up on my squares. So.
Do I say yes? I don't know what it is.
I think yes will suffice. Yeah. Although I do like I.
Aye.
Laura Klein,
Yes.
Pat Nelson,
Sure, yeah.
Kristen Morganti,
Yep, thumbs up.
Tara Edelman,
Aye.
and Lindsay Howard. I, yes, am in favor. All right.
And then
Thank you.
should we record that Sue Curtin was not present as part of the vote?
I will.
All right. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
I'll send that over to you later this evening.
Okay, great. I'll send it
Wonderful.
off to our chair and we'll let you know when it's on our agenda.
Okay, great. All right, so the next item on the agenda is an update on the Library Corporation Sustainability Committee. Some of you may be aware that there is such a committee. And for those of you who aren't, I'll give you a quick overview. It's a group of, very similar to the committee that Sherry just described, a group of folks in town, citizens, people who work for the town, trustees, people who work at the library, myself, and there's a group called Greener You, and they are kind of facilitating the conversations we're having as a committee. They recently did a similar plan for Concord Academy, so they're very familiar not only with Concord, but the libraries. They spent a lot of time working right across the street from the library on their plans with Concord Academy, and they have us all working very hard to align the corporation with the town sustainability and climate action goals. and kind of tie everything into the library's strategic planning process. So there's a lot of very ambitious goals that are part of this committee, and it's a great way to kind of tie in what's going on, in the expansion of the library with the strategic plan, and aligning everything with what the town is trying to do as a whole. The committee really sees the library as being a beacon for sustainability, and hopes that we can really have the library be an example not only for the town, but for surrounding communities as well, to show that these goals are achievable, and to lay out how we are going to do them. There is going to be, kind of using best practices of other libraries and the work that Concord has done to date. The library and the corporation hope to create a 5-year sustainability plan. And there's also kind of taking it even further, goals at the 10-year and the 30-year mark. And that's been very it's inspiring and fun to be a part of, especially thinking 30 years down the road, what we can do, and how the library can really be, carbon neutral and all of these wonderful things. And so it's been a great process. We've been meeting for a few months now and have completed a baseline study. There's a website with a lot of great information that Greener U has put together, and I'll send the link to that around to you all later, so you can take a look at your own convenience. There's also a survey within the website that would be greatly appreciated by myself and the folks at Greener U for you to complete. It's a pretty quick and easy survey, but it's a great way to kind of share your thoughts on sustainability and what the library can do in that regard. There have been a few community sessions already. A couple were held during Climate Preparedness Week in September. And there's going to be more opportunities for community engagement down the line. Those sessions will kind of focus on 2 particular kind of buckets. The first being the built environment and operations of the library. And that focuses right now a lot on, obviously, the building and the expansion project, but that will evolve over time to really include kind of the day-to-day operations of the library building. And then there's also a lot of opportunity for outreach and education as well, ways to kind of tie in. I'm trying to figure out ways to tie in sustainability into library planning and programming, as well as different ways to get people in town involved, whether it be at the elementary and high school level up through, all the different ages in town. So kind of the next steps for the committee are to start to, as I mentioned, kind of work together with our committee to see if there's a way we can tie in the work on the sustainability committee with the strategic plan. There are also a variety of upcoming sessions that the Sustainability Committee and Greener U are going to host, and it would be great if we could have some library committee attendance in those, so I will certainly keep you posted on those events. And there are opportunities if you want to kind of take it another level and get a little more involved and kind of help run some of those training sessions there. The committee is looking for some folks who are well-versed in what's going on in the library to kind of help facilitate those sessions. So that is a very quick overview of what's going on there. But if anybody has any questions or comments or concerns about that, I'd be happy to answer them as best I can. All right.
Great summary, Lindsay.
Thank you.
And thank you for
Thank
participating.
Well, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Good.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions on that, we can move along to the next item on the agenda, which is next steps for long-range planning. I'm going to loop in Carrie here because when we talked earlier this week, Carrie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you had a good suggestion kind of for how to kind of go about, to kind of navigate long range planning, and how your approach has changed to that process based on your experience and the library's experience with COVID.
Sure, thanks, Lindsay. So we had that visioning session with Jay Vogt over a year ago. And leading up to that, just to give everyone some background, Tara was on the communications team, chairing the communications team for the building project, and convened a lot of community focus groups where we received a lot of feedback. So Jay Vogt kind of worked with all of the information that had been gathered and in preparing with around certain themes to do the visioning. And an outcome of that was the trifold that I distributed in draft form a few meetings ago. So Sherry had reached out following that meeting to just ask sort of how we were approaching our information gathering and what our next steps might be. When I was new to the library, we didn't have a plan in place or even really a mission statement that we were working with. So we did an extensive long-range planning process. That was a 5-year plan was the outcome, and it involved lots of people. It was a team of about 12 people. So for this revision, we were thinking with the building project and such a clearly defined direction that we're going in for new services that will be implemented as a result of the increased space. I sort of felt like things were all simpler and on track, but COVID has gone on longer than I've anticipated, as I'm sure many of you also feel. And it has sort of changed the way we're thinking about the service model. And I raised the question to Lindsay, maybe we should convene some focus groups just to understand how the next 3 years in the library might have changed as a result of this shift that we've had to go and implement so unexpectedly. So I just raised the question that it might be a good idea to convene representatives of all the boards of the library to go over where we are, how we arrived at the information Jay Vogt worked with to create that trifold, and to just hear from the other library partners what their expectations are for participation and how the themes might be shifting, because some of what we're doing with remote and virtual programming has been very successful. And even as we transition to having people back in the building, there are some elements to what we've been doing we might want to retain that we never would have thought of perhaps before we've gone through this experience. So I think that kind of changes the questions we might ask the community. And so it might be a good time to kind of refresh our information and our understanding around how the community might have shifted in their thoughts about what they've liked about what we're doing, what might continue even when we can be more present in person. So that was sort of the question that I had. And then the sustainability was not part of our last plan. And you can see the corporation's made a huge investment in gathering and developing a plan that will be integrated into this. So that's a really new and important component for us to include. And then the diversity and inclusion, how we're going to implement that in our programming and in our approach is another key area that we need to have as more of a focus with this next plan. So my suggestion was just that we establish a working group. We've in meetings, people have always volunteered that they'll want to be a part of it, but it might be really meaningful to have a subcommittee that can actually advance it between meetings and determine with the help of the other representatives from the other boards what their thoughts are, and just take it from there, because we might learn some really interesting and meaningful things from more dialogue with the community before we finalize this next plan. So that's how my thinking has sort of shifted. I told Lindsay it's more confusing now. It was so clear before, but now there's an opportunity to learn from this and to make sure that everything we're doing is what the community needs and wants from the library. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I like that. I mean, I really think that having connection with the other groups within the library as we kind of talk about how to make this all work would be a valuable first step. And everybody's got a different experience over the last few months. So the more perspectives we could pull, the better off I think our end product will be.
Great idea.
Yeah.
capture this moment and really kind of dive into how the library can serve people in a remote way, as well as in our fabulous new building in person, bringing the community together, which is such a priority. But my experience over COVID has really reinforced that there is a place for remote, and there's a place and a way to build a community through remote. So I think that's a great idea, Carrie. I'm all for it.
Great. I know we've reached new audiences through the virtual programming, and so that's an important thing to retain.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think when we started the long range planning process, we were ahead of ourselves on the long range plan, and we were making like an iterative update to reflect that there was more we could do. And now we're in a position where like the entire world has changed. We got delayed, and now it seems appropriate to take the opportunity to maybe wipe the slate clean and think a little differently about how the library functions. I mean, you and to capitalize on the creative thinking that you've all done. It's incredible.
Great. All right. Is anybody interested in serving on that subcommittee? I see your hand, Tara. Thank you.
Looks like Laura's hand is up too.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
don't know
thank you.
very much, but I would really like to be involved in it.
That was
It's
kind of
wonderful.
the same
Just
thing,
join the
like,
committee. So.
you know,
Sounds like you know
Terry,
how to
you're
write a
involved, you can
strategic
help
plan.
guide me with the history piece.
I could see your eyes sparkling as Carrie was talking, Laura. I think this is right up your alley.
Yeah. And I can tell you that the Library Corporation's been giving this a lot of thought because we're building new spaces, which
Mhm.
again, we're all looking forward to the time when we can enjoy that together. But we realize that we need to be, looking at alternatives. And so it'd be great to have a conversation together and explore that. How to make it work. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. We will, I will take a step back and look at schedules, and we can try to figure out an appropriate time for folks to meet, and we'll get that process moving along.
Great, thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you. Carrie, would you like to talk about your director's report and financial report?
Sure, thank you. So as you know, we reopened for browsing on September 21st. So there's a link in the report to our reopening plan, and it's been going very well. We are averaging at the main library in the first 4 weeks of service, 48 visitors a day, and 34 on average at the Fowler branch. So the curbside pickup remains a very popular service. Some people, I think, prefer it to taking the risk of coming in, but overall, I think we've put in so many safety protocols and created an atmosphere that's very comfortable for the staff and for the visitors. So we're pleased at how that's going, and we're watching the cases daily and seeing how it's changing. So we'll be prepared if we need to take a step back at some point if the local case count continues to rise. But overall, I think it's going well. I'd be glad to answer any questions about it if you haven't yet had a chance to come back and visit. We have 45-minute appointments, and we ask that people make the reservation in advance just because it's easier and expedites people coming in and not needing to stop and record that information when they arrive. But we accept walk-ins as well, and we record the information for the contact tracing requirement that we need to. So we have 15 people at the main library per 45 minutes and 8 at Fowler. And since we opened with those low numbers, we wanted to be very conservative because we can always increase from there, and it allows the flexibility of the walk-ins. And also we have contractors in the building for the project too. But since we launched with those low numbers, the governor extended the capacity to 50% for libraries. We stayed with the numbers that we started with, and we haven't come close to hitting those. So people are, it's working. We don't need to increase them just yet. So earlier in September, Dory Carlin joined us as the new full-time branch librarian at Fowler. If you haven't had a chance to meet her yet, I hope she'll be able to come as a guest to a future meeting. She's so enthusiastic and has got so many great ideas. Her background is children's services. Does these wonderful craft kits that people can take at curbside, and she has chalk out for folks to record messages on the sidewalk, and has a lot of ideas for using the outdoor space for programming. So she's met with Di Clymer, the trustee responsible for the grounds and the landscaping, to explore ideas. And she has an idea to implement a story walk along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So we're talking with Marcia Rasmussen about that idea. So she's really bringing a lot of creativity and helping us with the social media too. So she's making a great transition. We had a great collaboration again this year with the Sustainability Director, Kate Hanley, for Climate Preparedness Week. Our temporary project specialist, Renee Cunningham, has a particular interest in that area, and she's serving on the Trustees Sustainability Committee as well with Lindsay. And she helped with the ribbon display that was outside the Sudbury Road entrance, and the film discussion and the related events for that. So that went well. During that period of time, she also submitted an application for an ALA Resilient Communities Libraries Respond to Climate Change grant. It was a $1,000 grant. And although our library wasn't selected, ALA was really impressed with the programming ideas and offered the library a stipend of $500 toward additional programs related to sustainability. So we were excited. I opened the mail today and we received the check. So Renee was thrilled to have her ideas recognized in that way. And she's really enjoying being part of the sustainability committee. So I included some pictures of the demolition, and just to update you, we did install a time-lapse camera on the second floor of the main library, because we have a great bird's eye view of the back of the Haywood Benjamin House. So we can see all of that that's going on. So we're recording it. So eventually we'll be able to have an expedited film that makes it look like it's happening really quickly. But that went in pretty much after the demolition, but it will be installed for the full building, the building aspect of the project. So that's pretty terrific and exciting. We had, since we didn't meet in September, I wanted to be sure you heard what a wonderful summer learning program we had this year. It was record attendance. All of the programs were virtual. This is the first year we've expanded beyond reading to also STEAM activities. And we had, the totals are here, 552 readers, read 2,430 books, and completed 2,047 activities, all virtually. So that's pretty neat. And the brother and sister were their twins were among the biggest readers. So they were invited to present the check for $200 that the friends provided to Gaining Ground. So you might have seen in the Concord Journal, there was a photograph of that ceremony, but it was exciting to honor the readers and to be able to make that contribution to Gaining Ground. So that was a wonderful success this year, and we're very grateful to the school, to the superintendent, and to the teachers for promoting it to the extent that they did. We recently had a program on racism for children grades 2nd through 5th that was sponsored by We the People, and the Library Corporation and the Friends generously contributed to the costs of that. So we were pleased at the attendance, and Royce was really pleased with how they approached the topic for kids. So we hope to do more programming like that in the future. The Scarecrow Festival is now installed. If you haven't had a chance to stop by, please make sure to do so. It will be up through the 30th at both locations. We have a couple of scarecrows at the Fowler Branch in West Concord as well. But these are really creative. There's one in the corner of Max from Where the Wild Things Are, kicking COVID. You can see it in the photo here. There's the Louisa May Alcott. There's one of our construction superintendent, Mark Giglio, that Carrie Stow, one of our librarians, created. And there's a fun picture of them on social media with Mark has his arm around his likeness, his scarecrow likeness. And he even has his business card in the vest pocket. So it's very clever. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the local businesses are represented and the schools and other town departments. So it's a really great annual community event. The Special Collections, Anka Voss has launched a new program called Concord Stories from Special Collections. And she had the opportunity to be in conversation with Dr. Eleanor Harvey of the Smithsonian American Art Museum. That's where the library's painting The Philosopher's Camp in the Adirondacks is currently. It's part of the exhibition. So it was really wonderful to hear them through this virtual platform to be able to talk about the significance of that painting to the exhibition. And that's recorded. So I have the link in the report. You can go back and hear it. And there has since been a second interview with an author who's recently published a book, I believe, on Louisa May Alcott. So she's going to be interviewing and having conversations with various people and tying it to the Special Collections as a regular program that you can tune into via Zoom. And those are sort of the highlights. We're going to be working with Special Collections with some Simmons University students who are archival students. They're able to assist remotely, so they're not going to be coming into the building, but they'll be assisting as interns. And Anka's also working with the Concord Museum about an exhibition that's planned for the fall of 2021 through the spring. So that's just in the development stages at this point. But those are the highlights from my report. There've been a lot of building issues I've attended to, but I figured it was more fun to focus on the programming for this purposes of this report. I'm glad to answer any questions. It's been a busy fall with our reopening and making that transition, but any questions about? No? Okay. I think that's the financial report. As you know, it was passed at town meeting in September, so that's '22 budget very soon. I'm planning for that with the expansion. So the last 6 months of that budget will include some additional services and expenses because of the larger building. But
Hey, Carrie, I'm sorry. I think you may have cut out there for a quick second, so I didn't catch the first part of your commentary about the.
I was just mentioning how at the town meeting, the current budget passed, and that we'll be having conversations soon related to planning for fiscal year 2022, and that the building project will be complete for the last 6 months of that budget. So we'll need to plan for the increased expenses related to utilities and potentially staffing as a result of the increased space and services as a result of that project. So that'll be an important initiative for us to be talking about this fall, to be sure that we're putting forth exactly what we'll need to be successful in the new building.
Can I just ask a couple questions about the budget?
Sure.
And this is just to get me smart on how this is working and how you guys are thinking about it. As I'm looking at the budget now, it seems like I'm just curious to know, it looks like you guys did some front end computer or IT maintenance, or because there's some big ticket items here that there was an outlay that was, from computer equipment to computer capital and whatnot. I was just curious to know. I'm just curious to know what that's about, but I'm also interested in understanding, like, do you guys, when encumbrances actually happen, that true up happens at the end of the fiscal year for you guys? Is that the way that works?
Yes.
Okay. And then for things like clerical services and COVID-19 expenditures, where those are actually expenditures and not encumbrances, when there's no budgeted number for that, how does that get reconciled? How do you guys think about reconciliation on those, on stuff like that?
I believe it's going against CARES Act funding. So
Oh, okay.
we track it, and then the finance department posts it against those funds.
And that includes the clerical services stuff too? I'm just saying, like, clerical services has an appropriation of 0, but it's already had a $4,500 expenditure. So you've got a negative line item here. I'm just curious to know how that gets reconciled if it's not an encumbrance.
So the clerical, it has to do with some temporary workers that we have. So that funding actually is salary savings from vacancies for the budgeted positions above.
Oh, okay.
Because we're managing to the bottom line, that is offset by.
So it's fungible. It's all fungible at that point. It's basically fungible.
Right. It's just how we have to track it because of the
Yep.
nature of the type of position that it is.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure. I also wanted to remind everybody about the Concord Festival of Authors that is going on now. Now through the end of the month, Mystery Night concludes the festival on the 31st. It's all virtual. So you can go to concordfestivalofauthors.org and sign up for many of the events. It's a really great lineup as always. So I hope you have a chance to enjoy some of that. Are there any additional questions?
All right. Unless anybody has any additional questions, comments, or anything to raise, I think that concludes our meeting this evening.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Nice to
We'll
see
see
you.
you in November.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.